You are standing on the edge of a blue hardcourt in Washington, D.C., the air thick with humidity and the kind of tension that makes your stomach drop. It is July 2026, and you are watching a 21-year-old woman named Alex Eala prepare to serve. She has just flown across an ocean, slept maybe 4 hours, and walked into a stadium packed with people who have been tracking her every move, like she is a weather system they can't predict. But here is the thing that should make you pause. 48 hours ago, this same woman was walking off center court at Wimbledon in tears, having lost a 3-set match that felt like it would define her entire career. By all modern logic, by every rule of sports psychology and human recovery we think we understand, she should be on a plane home. She should be resting. She should be processing. Instead, she is here, gripping a racket like it is the only solid thing left in a world that keeps spinning too fast. And nobody saw this coming. Not really. So why do we do this? Why does a human being, after experiencing one of the most public, emotionally devastating failures of their young life, not retreat to safety, but instead run directly toward another arena of judgment? When did this behavior begin? Why are we like this? We tend to think of athletic resilience as a modern concept, something invented by sports psychologists and performance coaches with clipboards and mindfulness apps. We assume that the drive to keep going after a loss is a product of professional training, of contract incentives, of the relentless media cycle that demands content even when the athlete is broken. But that explanation is only part of the story. The timeline doesn't quite work, because long before there were tennis tournaments or prize money or Instagram captions, there was something else driving this exact same impulse, something older, something written into the architecture of our nervous systems before we ever picked up a racket. The answer goes way deeper than you think. Once you understand this, you will never look at a comeback the same way again. The real story starts much earlier than most people realize, in a time when failure didn't mean losing ranking points, it meant not eating, or worse. Let's go back, way back. Imagine you are not a tennis player. You are a hunter-gatherer on the African savanna, roughly 200,000 years ago. You have just missed a critical shot with your spear. The gazelle is gone. Your group is hungry. The sun is setting and the shadows are getting longer. In that moment, your brain is not calculating sponsorship deals or social media engagement. It is running a survival algorithm that has been refined over millions of years of evolutionary trial and error. And that algorithm has a very specific response to failure. It does not say rest. It says try again, but differently, immediately. This is where the story changes. Most people assume that the urge to persist after failure is purely psychological, a matter of mental toughness or grit. But neuroscientists and evolutionary biologists now believe it is far more fundamental than that. It is embedded in our dopaminergic or reward system. When we fail, our brains don't just register disappointment, they register a prediction error, a gap between what we expected and what actually happened. And the brain hates prediction errors. They are signals that our internal model of the world is wrong, and if our model is wrong, we are vulnerable. So the brain releases a cascade of neurotransmitters, not to punish us, but to motivate correction, to push us back into the arena, not out of stubbornness, but out of biological necessity. Evolutionarily speaking, the individuals who gave up after failure were the ones whose genes disappeared from the pool, the ones who kept trying, who adjusted their aim, who learned from the miss. They survived. They reproduced. They passed on the neural wiring that makes Alex Eala board a plane 48 hours after heartbreak instead of crawling into bed. Now, here's where it gets weird. This mechanism isn't unique to humans. Researchers studying animal behavior have found similar patterns across species. Rats in mazes don't sulk after hitting a dead end. They immediately explore alternative paths. Primates who fail to crack a nut with one stone will try a different anvil, a different rock within seconds. Even birds adjust their foraging strategies in real time based on failed attempts. Persistence after failure isn't a cultural invention, it's a biological imperative, which means that when Alex Eala steps onto that hardcourt in Washington, she isn't just displaying athletic discipline, she is enacting a survival strategy that predates language, culture, and civilization itself. She is doing what her ancestors did when the hunt failed, recalibrating, re-engaging, refusing to let the error become permanent.
But there's another layer, and this is where the ancient biology collides with something uniquely human. Because while the impulse to persist is old, the context in which we now express it is entirely new. 200,000 years ago, failure was private. If you missed the spear, only your small group knew. The feedback loop was immediate, tangible, and contained. Today, failure is broadcast. It is archived. It is commented on by strangers who have never held a racket. The prediction error isn't just neurological anymore, it's social. And the human brain, which evolved to navigate small group dynamics, is suddenly operating in an environment it was never designed for. The standing ovation Alex received at Wimbledon after losing wasn't just kindness, it was a social signal, a collective acknowledgement that the failure itself had meaning, that the act of showing up, of enduring, was worthy of recognition regardless of outcome. This is where culture modifies biology, where the ancient drive to persist gets wrapped in layers of narrative, identity, and communal support. Now, we have to be careful here. This doesn't mean that every instance of persistence is noble or adaptive. Sometimes the brain's insistence on correcting prediction errors leads to obsession, to burnout, to chasing losses that should be abandoned. The same neural circuitry that drives comebacks also drives gamblers to bet everything on one more hand. Absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. We can't prove that Alex's decision to play in Washington was purely evolutionary instinct rather than contractual obligation or personal pride. There are multiple explanations, and they likely overlap. But what we can say is that the capacity to transform failure into forward motion is not a flaw in human design. It's a feature, one that has been tested in the crucible of deep time. And then something changed, or rather, something became visible. When Alex posted those 7 words, Salamat, Salahat, Wimbledon, she wasn't just expressing gratitude, she was performing a ritual as old as storytelling itself. Humans have always used language to reframe failure, to convert loss into meaning. The earliest myths are full of heroes who fall, who wander, who return transformed. Failure was never the end of the story, it was the necessary middle chapter. What's different now is the speed and scale of that reframing. In the past, the narrative took generations to solidify. Now it happens in real time, across millions of screens, with the audience participating in the meaning-making. The Filipino diaspora lining the fences in Washington isn't just watching tennis. They are witnessing the continuation of a story they helped write. Their presence is part of the feedback loop, the social reinforcement that tells the brain, this persistence matters. You are not alone in the arena. Think about that for a second. The same neural mechanisms that once helped our ancestors survive droughts and predators are now being activated by tennis matches watched by millions. The stakes are different, but the underlying architecture is identical. We are still the species that refuses to let failure be final. We are still the animals that treat prediction errors as invitations to learn, not as verdicts. And in Alex Eala's case, something else is happening that connects back to that ancient fire. She is carrying not just her own prediction errors, but those of an entire community. Every Filipino fan who told a coworker to remember her name, every child who picked up a racket because they saw her win in Miami, every parent who believed that a girl from Quezon City could belong on center court, their hopes are woven into her persistence. This is no longer just individual survival, it's collective identity, and that changes the calculus entirely. Because here's the part nobody talks about. The reason this feels so profound isn't just that she kept playing, it's that she kept playing in a way that honored both the ancient impulse and the modern reality. She didn't pretend the loss didn't hurt. She didn't perform toxic positivity. She acknowledged the pain, expressed gratitude, and then moved forward with clear eyes. That balance between honoring the emotional truth of failure and refusing to be defined by it is perhaps the most advanced form of persistence we've developed. It's what separates adaptive resilience from mere stubbornness. It's what allows the ancient survival mechanism to function in a world where the threats are no longer physical but existential, where the arenas are no longer savannas but stadiums filled with cameras and expectations. Now zoom out for a second. Look at what this reveals about us as a species. We are not optimized for comfort. We are optimized for adaptation. Our brains are not designed to avoid failure. They are designed to metabolize it, to turn the raw data of loss into the fuel of growth. Every time someone chooses to show up after being broken, they are not defying human nature. They are fulfilling it. They are proving that the oldest parts of us, the parts that kept our ancestors alive through ice ages and famines and endless uncertainty, are still operational, still relevant, still capable of guiding us through landscapes our predecessors could never have imagined. And honestly, respect.